Hi, and welcome to the R2RB Indie Artist Podcast Series. And today, my guest is Chuck W. Chapman. And thank you so much for joining me. And Chuck Chapman is a singer, songwriter, guitarist from Greensville, South Carolina. He plays a brand of rock and roll that has hints of the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Chuck is also a published horror author and actor. And I can't wait to ask you about that. Hey, Chuck, thank you so much for being my guest and taking time out of your busy schedule. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. And I like to ask two questions to get us warmed up. You could have one superpower. Which one would you want and why?
Teleportation.
Okay.
And the why is so if I wanted to play in LA tomorrow, I could just and be there. Or Delaware. If I wanted, you said, hey, come play Delaware tonight. I just boom, and I'm there and we're having a good time.
I like that. And there's a lot of great venues here in Delaware. You'll have to come visit and play here for
Let's
sure.
do it.
Okay. Where is one place in the world you would like to visit?
I've always thought Japan would be really cool. And mainly just because the early rock albums that I bought were Cheap Tricks, live at Budokan, and the Runaways. More on the Runaways later, I'm sure. But the Runaways live in Japan. And then, of course, Kiss, being a huge Kiss fan, they were huge in Japan. So it just seems like they really embraced the American rock and roll style. And it's just such a different culture
Right.
that I just think it would be really cool.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, absolutely. I would go with that one. All right. So when you're not doing music, what are you doing?
I'm probably promoting music, doing podcasts, doing interviews, doing something to do with it. But if not that, then I do spend a lot of time writing, whether it be writing songs, writing short stories, writing novels. So a lot of my spare time is spent writing. I do the occasional acting job. The acting stuff is getting more and more occasional, which is fine with me, because the other stuff is getting more and more busy. So.
Wow, you've got a busy schedule. Well, let me ask the question. How do you balance it all? I mean, you are three-dimensional, four-dimensional.
Don't caffeine, lots of caffeine. No, it's stuff I enjoy. I never really take time off, so I don't watch TV very rarely. I don't watch television. I don't do a lot of internet stuff unless it is some sort of promotion or research or something. So, a lot of people spend 2, 3, 4 hours a day watching television. Well, I can spend that time creating.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that makes me a whole lot happier than, knowing who the next bachelorette is going to be or whatever.
Exactly. And as long as it works for you to balance out your crazy schedule, then that's what you want. I like that. How did you get started in the music scene? And when?
When? Very, very early. Probably I was 7 or 8 when I discovered Kiss. And from the time I was 7 or 8 until the time I was like 27 or 8, I would stand in front of my mirror and pretend to be Paul Stanley. Of course, a little earlier than that, I got to jump up on a stage and actually pretend to be, him. So I made the transition a little quicker than the late 20s. But no, really, I mean, that's kind of what caught me.
Yeah.
Is they had the sound, they had the look, they had the show, they had everything.
They did.
What else, what else could a 7-year-old kid want?
Right.
And they just sucked me right in. Now, on top of that, my dad had been in several country bands. He had played on the Grand Ole Opry and stuff. Now, that was before my time. I was a very, very late baby. My parents were in the 40s when they had me. So, But he had played with a couple of the Louvin brothers.
Oh, wow.
And a couple of other, big country people. So he was a stand-up bass player. So when he saw that I was interested in music from like 13 or 14, when I started attempting to do bands when none of us could play anything, but we were in a band, it was like, he's like, no, stay away from that. You don't want to get in that. You don't want to get in that. And, he really discouraged me until he found out that I was serious about it and I was willing to work for it. And then he became my biggest fan and biggest supporter.
Oh, yeah.
But it took about 8 years of that.
Oh, wow. Yeah, but when you see, your dedication and how much you love it, yeah, I'm sure it was hard for him not to be your supporter. Wow. All right. So you've opened for some incredible bands and artists, and you've toured extensively. What was that experience like?
We'll take the opening for bands and artists first. It's always really cool. The first couple of times I did it, of course, I was kind of, fanboy. I was all excited because you never think that you're going to get to do that. Those aren't real people. Those are superstars. Those are people you've heard on records or saw on television or something. I saw them on MTV, and it's like, you don't know how to act. So the first couple of times I was just like in awe. I think I still did my part just fine, but I didn't really have any real conversations or anything. And it wasn't a lack of respect. It was just like, what do I say to these people? They're here and I'm here.
Right.
And then it kind of reversed over time. Then, when I got in my 20s, or I meant further up in my 20s, and I'm like, oh, well, now I'm on the way up and they're on the way down. So then I started being an arrogant jerk and didn't care. And then, then another 5 years down the road, that kind of all levels out, and it becomes you appreciate being there, but you also know that they're real people and they're working just like you are. And most of them are really cool, if you approach them from that. Most of them are very cool to, give you advice, help you out, whatever, encourage you.
Yeah, what a great experience.
And the touring, like I said, there's a reason I wish I could teleport.
Yeah.
I love playing different places. I love seeing different people, love being in different cities. As an indie band, it's hard because half the time when you show up there, those people have no clue who you are. So it's not like you go in and they're going, oh, play my favorite song.
Right.
So you're almost trying to have to win over the crowd every time, which is kind of cool in a way. I take it as a challenge because you should be able to win over the crowd. But a lot of times you're playing not to a crowd. You have 14 people there. You just drove 6 hours to get to a show to play for 14 people. So that part can be tough, but I love going different places, love having different stages. Sometimes we'll be on a stage that's huge and it looks like we could play to 20,000 people on that stage. Wow. And then sometimes it's literally, let's try not to hit each other in the face with our guitar necks.
Wow. Do you like them both as much, a more intimate setting versus a large arena?
I'm not just a ham, I'm the whole pig. So the bigger the arena, the better to me, so, but at the same point, I do like being able to make that eye-to-eye contact, but I like having enough room that I can move and put on a real show and, see people up front without having to push their fork away so they're not feeding me when they're trying to eat their whatever they're trying to eat.
Oh my gosh. And you've been across the United States touring, right?
Mostly the Southeast. Now I have done some on the West Coast. Haven't really done anything in the middle.
Okay.
So I guess we're Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia. I'm sure I'm forgetting somewhere. Those fairly regularly. And I have done like LA, done California a couple of times, and we're going back to California in August, and we're going to play the Whiskey A Go-Go, which is a lifetime. Since I grew up watching the guys on the Sunset Strip.
That will be awesome.
I wanted to be on that stage, so we're finally going to be on that stage. And actually, I'm going to be lucky enough to be on it twice.
Wow.
Because we're supporting a band the night before. A friend of ours from New Zealand was playing the night before, and it was so weird. It's just this karma thing because we didn't know that he was playing on the 6th. He didn't know that we were playing on the 7th.
That's so cool.
He saw that we posted we were playing on the 7th, and he reached out and said, hey, I'm playing on the 6th. Do you guys have anybody that would be willing to be my band? Because he's coming from New Zealand, so he's not bringing a full band. And we're like, yeah, we're there anyway. So we're going to get to play behind him. We're learning his set. Awesome. And strangely enough, our lead guitar player is not going to be able to go, so he's going to play lead for us on the 7th.
Oh, wow.
It works out really, really well.
Oh, that is going to be 2 great shows.
It'll be fun. And then I've got a festival gig on Saturday. We're doing an outdoor festival that I've done a couple of times. So it's gonna be great. So at least playing LA area 3 times in 4 days and possibly a 4th time.
That's awesome. That's great. Does it take a toll on you though? Does the touring, being in someplace all the time other than home?
It can when it's a lot of travel between. And unfortunately for indie bands, it is. And it's not like we get to travel in the luxury of a, air conditioned Silver Eagle or anything. We're piling ourselves, well, not, to LA, we're flying, of course, but when we're around here, we've had shows where we've literally played on a Friday, finished up at 2 a.m., jumped in the van, drove 7 hours.
That's dedication.
To play on a Saturday.
That's your dedication. That's your passion. I mean, that's it in a nutshell, being able to pack it all up and just go.
But that's when it does wear on you.
Yeah.
So that's when the teleportation would come in very handy. And we all have real jobs. We all have to have real jobs.
Yeah,
Because it's not like this This doesn't pay the rent.
It is not. Being an indie artist is not for the faint of heart.
It's it's not now anyway. I
No.
don't know if it ever was, but 30 years ago or 25 years ago when I was doing it pretty much full time and opening for the big bands and all, it was a lot easier then because you got the same amount of money then that you got now, and the pool was a lot smaller
Back then,
because
yeah.
there were way fewer bands, regional type bands around then, or at least it felt like it, because that was pre-internet
Right.
and stuff. So we did the mailing list. People signed up and we made postcards. This is where we're playing the next 2 months. But that really, you seem to be able to build your following a lot faster that way. And like I said, it seemed like the fish were a little bigger and the pond was a lot smaller.
Yeah, it's hard these days. I know the indie artists, you all work hard and trying to promote yourselves through all the social networks and the platforms and what have you. That's a full-time job.
It is. It really is.
It really is. Who are while we're speaking of bands, who are your members of your band?
Okay, of course, me. I do the rhythm guitar, lead vocals, and so far I've written everything just because. Todd Duncan is my bass player. Todd does some backup vocals for me as well. Clark Bender is my lead guitarist, and Joseph Tanay is my drummer. And Joe has played with me off and on in different projects for probably 17 or 18 years. So he's really lost a lot of money playing music with me, but we've had a great time.
We had a good time. That's what counts.
Well, and there's certain people that you just work with so well.
Right.
And that's really what's, to me, it's always been more important of, do I like these guys than are they the best musicians in the world? Because I don't think it really matters. The average person doesn't really care how fast you can play or, how technical you are. They just want to have a good time.
Right.
And I think it conveys, if you're on stage having a good time and you like the people you're with, then I think the audience feels that and they like them.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, 100%. Oh my gosh. And talking about your shows, what can people expect from your shows? What kind of performer are you on stage?
Definitely high energy. Definitely high energy. We move a lot. That's why I said when we're playing those places where we're elbow to elbow, it's really awkward and really hard. I like being able to, if you've seen the back of the new CD, I'm suspended 5 feet off the ground or whatever. And just hoping that I don't break a hip when I land.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is going to be a high energy show. It's going to be, I don't talk a lot between songs. I try to let the music do the talking. If people want to talk to me, I'm definitely cool with that at the merch table afterwards.
Yeah, there you
or
go.
Before, as long as they want to. But on stage, we've only got a finite amount of time and I want to play the music.
Wow, of course, absolutely. Yeah. And that's what everybody's there for too, right? Is to listen to wherever you are. Your music video, Nobody's Angel.
Mm-hmm.
On your EP Outcast Among Outcasts. I've watched it several times and it's a great song. I love the video. Did you put that together?
I did, yeah.
Do you like that part of it?
I do. I'm not great at it. A lot of the people that I work with when I do film work are way, 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 way better at it than I am as far as structuring things and lining up mouths and all, which I really am horrible with, as you can tell by the video. But also those people stay very busy. I can only ask for favors that often. I try to do most of them myself, and then every, maybe 3 or 4 videos, I'll try to get more of a pro to just kind of put it together for us. But most of the photography in there was done by a friend of mine named Tom. He had most of the video, so I just kind of cut it together.
Yeah, no, it was great. Nobody's Angel on your EP Outcast Among Outcasts, which I really like the name of that. Was there a story behind that?
There is a story behind that. Usually when you go to the arts, most artsy people kind of feel like they're different, and most of them are different, present company included, of course. And so you really, a lot of times you don't feel like you fit in anywhere. And then you find this community of people that supposedly are like you, and you think, hey, I'm going to fit in here, only to find out that they can be just as cliquey as the other people. So, hey, I'm an outcast, but even when I'm hanging out with these other outcasts, I'm outcast from them as well.
Wow.
So it really does. It just, it tells you a lot of times you're in this thing on your own, and that's kind of what it says. And then there's a deeper version too that kind of aligned with it, is that my maternal great grandparents were Native American. So I had at one time went on and looked, said, hey, am I eligible for scholarships and all this, And I found out that their name was Sizemore, and the Sizemore clan actually came from Ireland, I want to say, but they intermarried on the Trail of Tears while the Cherokee were going west on the Trail of Tears.
Wow.
Some of them branched off, intermarried with the Sizemore clan, and they became a band of Indians called the White Top Laurel.
Oh, wow.
And the problem is that the Cherokee didn't claim them. The Cherokee claimed that they're Creek, and the Creek claimed that they're Cherokee. So they're not on any list. They're kind of their own little tribe, and they aren't eligible for any kind of government assistance because no tribe will actually claim them.
Wow.
So again, here I am. Even though I'm an outcast, I'm an outcast from the outcast.
Wow. That is something. Wasn't expecting that story.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that is crazy.
Yeah, you can Google that, and there's, it goes in depth on there, because it's just crazy. I'm like, yeah, it figures,
Yeah, but to be able to, fall back on that experience to have the background for this outcast is pretty cool. Let me ask you this. When was there a time when you wanted to take a step back from music? Was there ever a time where it's like, okay, I've just had it, I can't do it anymore?
I got married and had kids, so I did kind of take a step back. I took off pretty much. I did a cover band for a while, but no real traveling, no real writing, or very little, creating new music or anything. After that marriage was gone, after my kids were pretty much grown up, during COVID, I had some old material that I had recorded, I don't even remember, maybe 10 years earlier. And, I was just sitting here going through it, and I'm like, wow, this stuff isn't that far from being finished. So I just started playing around with it and remixing and adding some vocals and doing some stuff. And I said, I'm going to put, 4-song EP out. Maybe 10 of my friends will buy it. But I ended up selling a couple of hundred copies online, and had Bentley Records, an online, IO record label, contacted me, said, hey, we really like this song. Have you got more that you can send us? I sent them a few other things, and then they offered me a distribution deal. So when they did that, I'm like, wow, I guess I need to write more music and put a band together.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And here you are.
Here I am. I figure, it's like, okay, God gave me another opportunity, so I want to take advantage of that. Again, I know I have a finite time. I'm going to be 60 and before too long, and I'm not going to be jumping up because I will really break a hip. Not to say it can't happen this week anyway, but,
Don't say that.
Okay. I would find a way to play.
I'm sure you would.
I played a show with a broken wrist. I wasn't very good, but I was there. I showed up and I played.
I have a question about your songwriting. You said that you do all the writing for your songs. Do you collaborate with anybody?
Not really, but it's not from not wanting to or a stubborn point. It's the few times that I've tried, it just hasn't really worked.
Okay.
Stuff kind of comes to me. I tend to come up with things will hit me at like 3 a.m. or in the middle of the shower or driving down the street or whatever. I mean, I've written lyrics on the back of a McDonald's bag, you name it. So there's little stuff stuck everywhere. Now that the phone, I jump in the phone and make notes, so that helps. But yeah, I've got lyrics or ideas, and I'll even just have a little riff go through my head, and I'll throw up the recorder and okay, remember this, whatever.
I think most of the indie artists, when I ask them that question, that it's paper towel, boxes.
Yeah,
my recorder.
It's always the most inopportune time. It's never like when you're sitting. For me, it's not when I'm sitting down with a notebook going, "Hey, I think I'll write a song."
I'm at a gas station.
That's when the garbage gets done. It's when I'm not expecting anything. When oh, wait a minute, this might work.
Have you done writing from an early age, and was it lyrics, or did you write poetry? Were you writing passages for books ahead?
I wrote the second book of Revelation. They didn't include it in the Bible. I tried. Actually, I did short stories and poems and stuff really as far back as I can remember. I know, honestly, I got in trouble one time. Actually, the only time I think I ever had my mother called to go to the school
was
they wanted you to write an essay, of of what career you wanted when you grew up. And I think this was like seventh grade. And I wrote that I wanted to be a hitman. It was a joke. It wasn't, it was like, it was done very dark, humorish, but they did not see the humor. You might want to get this kid checked out. He wants to kill people. I don't want to kill anybody. Well, you said well, no, but I mean, for money, I would, but I was very misunderstood.
Oh my goodness gracious. Well, I'm sure your mother it was not a proud moment, I'm sure.
No, she got, believe it or not, she got me.
It.
She read and she's like, you can tell he's not serious with it. He's talking about having the dog lick the blood off his shoes. He's obviously not serious.
Oh my goodness gracious.
We don't have a vampire dog. What are you talking about?
Oh my gosh. Well, talking about vampires, I have to find out. I want to find out about your horror stories, your movies, your acting. Where did that come from?
I think, a lot of people think that's three different things. I kind of look at all of it as one big thing, just different ways of doing the same thing. To me, whether I'm writing a song, singing a song, acting a part, whether I've written it or someone else has written it, writing a short story, writing a book, to me, it's all just telling a story.
Okay.
And it's just different methods of telling a story. So I've always enjoyed telling a story, however you can do that. In fact, I think I was in fourth or fifth grade and I got, a little certificate on the last day of school when they give everybody, most likely to succeed, most likely to drop out by the fourth grade, whatever. I was best storyteller. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. But I'm not sure if that means they like my stories or if they just think I'm a big liar. Either way.
There you go.
I took it.
So when did the film come out later? Were you writing the horror stories when you were younger, or did that come later on?
No, I've pretty much always focused on horror thriller type stuff. And it's just, that's what is my biggest interest. I do throw some dark comedy in. So, one of my books is called Freak on a Moped. It's about a guy that basically is like if Jason Voorhees decided to ride around on a moped, it's not deep literature there, but it's fun, because the tagline is, if you can't run more than 25 miles per hour, you're toast.
That's it. I'm done.
Thank you for having me. See you later. She's like, I am erasing this tape right now.
I like your humor. But then you're acting it as well. So you, as I said, you are very dimensional, and you're right. It is all one thing, one piece that really branches out to all these other things.
It is. It's just different methods of doing the same. Yeah. You can throw a ball, you can kick a ball, you can hit a ball. It's still making a ball go somewhere.
Right. Yeah.
So when I kind of cut back on the music, the wife I had at the time, the ex-wife, who basically said it could incriminate me, I just need to stop there. Anyway, we decided we would start doing some community theater because it was something we both were interested in and we could do together. So it wasn't me being gone all weekend performing. It just kind of went from there. So I just did a lot of the theater roles and, tried different things. And, I even went to like the biggest theater in town knowing that I wouldn't get a role because people generally didn't their first try. And I did. And I was like, okay, maybe I can do this. No, it was a musical, so that helped. But the fact that what worked against me is I can act, I can sing, I can't dance. I always put on my applications, if it says, give your dance experience, I tell them I dance like what I am, a middle-aged straight white guy.
With a lot of enthusiasm jumping around on stage.
Yeah, I can jump, I can move. But when I've got to make it match 25 other people, I'm like, I kind of struggle there. So, I've had directors go, you know what, your character doesn't dance. And I'm like, yes, I can do this.
Oh my gosh. Are you writing anything presently?
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Actually, just started my newest book. I never know if that's going to be what comes out next. So I don't really let people know what I'm writing early because it could change, and I don't want people to go, oh, I heard that and it's going to be really cool. And then they go, wait a minute, that's not what this is about. Because, I could at any time, especially I'm early in the stages. So, was it the last one? I don't remember. Things kind of run together. But there was one where I was in the middle of something and I just stopped it and started another project. And then I went back to the previous one. because sometimes you just get something pop in your head and go, oh no, I want to do this now.
Right.
That doesn't mean the other thing was bad. It just means sometimes certain books take a lot of research, and then certain books, boom, you can just go, like my last book, I did almost no research for it because it was supernatural thriller. So it could do anything because it was my imagination. So I could make anything and it could be okay. Whereas, say, my first book, which was Family Man, which was, a historical fiction based on the Manson family murders, obviously I had to do a lot of research for that, because it was real. You had real people involved, even though I was telling it through the eyes of a fictional character. So it was a partially fictional narrative. It was still real events. Real people died. Real people are still in prison 50 years later because of it. And I thought, I have to stay true enough to the real case. Of course, then Quentin Tarantino comes along and does Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and he don't bother sticking to the case at all. And I'm like, hey, why is he making millions and I made like $73.42?
What's wrong with that, right?
Yeah, there's something wrong with this picture.
Okay, well, we'll be looking for that next book, whatever it might be.
Whatever it may be. Yeah, I try to put out a new one every year.
Cool.
Now, this year I do have 2 short stories coming out in 2 different anthologies. So one of which was written specifically for one of those anthologies. So that was pretty cool. Right. And it's coming out in July. The anthology is called Effigies and Incantations. And I think it has 17 authors. And it's coming out July, sometime in July, the end of July.
We are going to be on the lookout for it.
So I wrote a story especially for it.
Very good. Oh my gosh. How about on your singing songwriting side? Any EPs, singles coming out?
Well, the Outcast just came out like 3 weeks ago. So it is brand new. I have pieces. I have lots of pieces of stuff. And that's usually the way the next album gets started. It's rare. It happens. It does happen that I'll get a song, I'll just hear something and boom, sit down and it's pretty much done. It used to happen more often because I used to not keep the schedule that I keep now. But now most of the time I'll have piece. I'll have like a chorus or a riff or something that I've got to tumble it around for a while. And I'll either write it down or I'll record it or whatever and have it so that I can reference it. So if another piece comes up and I go, oh, maybe these 2 pieces will fit together. Or I can go, oh, I think this will work on with this other one. So there's pieces. There's probably pieces of 10 or 12 things that I would say there's a good chance 3 or 4 of them will end up on the next record. And then there's, 4 inches worth of lyrics from the past 35 years that at some point, some of those may show up. In fact, one of those showed up on this last record. The original bones of that song was written like almost 20 years ago. And it was when we were doing this record, I was thinking, I'd kind of like to do something different, kind of very sort of like the Kid Rock song Picture. Mm-hmm. For some reason, I was like, it'd be cool to do something like that. And when I was thinking that, I'm like, oh, I had the song, way, way back. So I dug it out, I played it, and I'm like, yeah, I think this will work. And that's the one that I'm like, because I was thinking of like the Kid Rock Sheryl Crow thing. I'm like, this one would sound really good with a female duet. Ended up meeting Cherie Curry from the Runaways at a horror convention, Virginia, about 3 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And our tables were right across from each other. When she needed to take a bathroom break or whatever, hey Chuck, do you mind watching my table? And stuff. So we kind of became friends. Exchanged contact information after the show, and also, hey, keep in touch. And so when I thought about this, I'm like, the chances of Cherie Curry going, sure, I would love to sing a song with you, are probably not that good. But what's it hurt to ask?
Right.
So, and it's not, and I told her when she gave me her number, I said, I will not abuse this, I promise. Because I'm sure there are people I thought it was really cool. She trusted me enough to do that, so I don't think I'd even contacted her maybe once. I think maybe I'd send her a message, hey, it was really great meeting you. Hopefully we get to do something again sometime or whatever. But then when this came up and I had this song and I'm like, I need a girl voice on this. And if I'm going to do this, I'm going to shoot for the stars. And if I don't, if she doesn't bite, if she's not interested, then I will find, a girl from a local band or something that might want to do it with me. But I reached out to Cherie. She's like, send me the song. I sent her the song. About 30 minutes later, she texted back and she goes, yeah, I'll do it.
Oh my God.
So,
man, the stars lined up that night.
So after I quit doing backflips, we started, wrote out the lyrics or typed out the lyrics, highlighted the parts that were hers, sent it to her, and, just said, okay, send it to me when you're done.
Oh my God.
And that's what we did. So she recorded her part in LA where she lives. I recorded my part in South Carolina, of course. But what was really cool is I was playing a festival in Simi Valley last year, the same one that I'll be doing this year. I gave Cherie a call the week before and said, hey, I'm playing this festival out there. You know, if you get a chance, swing by. Again, not expecting anything.
Sure.
She goes, I'm coming. I'm like, okay. Well, Saturday morning, sure enough, I get a message for Cherie, and she goes, give me the address and I'll be there. She came out. It was only like half an hour from her house or something. She came out, hung out, and it was this huge surprise because nobody there knew who she was or that, you know, was any reason for her to be there.
Right.
You know, so nobody was expecting. And I told them, you know, hey, I was lucky enough to record this song, you know, with Cherie Curry. And, you know, I'm going to play it for you now. I'm like, but what's cool is she recorded hers out here. I recorded mine back home. I said, we've never got to sing the song together until now.
Oh my gosh.
And I introduced her and the place just went wild. And it was great. I mean, you know,
Oh
everybody went from sitting back going, yeah, this is pretty cool to right at the front of the stage. You know, so it was amazing. She did a
That
great
is
job.
amazing.
Of course. And it was one of the highlights of my music career.
Oh my
I mean,
God.
I've done tons of cool things. I've opened for, you know, Peter Frampton, Blue Oyster Cult, Holly Hatchet, tons of those people that, you know, were people I listened to growing up and I thought was great and was really fun. And I've had really cool people guest on my albums. I mean, you know, one of my friends from way back, Jimmy Stiff, who was lead guitar player in Jackal. Literally, we've known each other for 30 years. He lives 30 minutes from me. When I want to do this album, I'm like, hey, Jimmy, would you be willing to do a solo on my record? Sure, man. You know, so it was cool. We've known each other all that time. We had never played together.
That is so cool.
You know, so it's so awesome to have Jimmy on there. And, you know, Kevin Stewart Swain, not a household name, but the guy's incredible. He's one of the best or one of the top 5 producers in Canada. We became friends actually through the He Drives at Night project. He plays with the band Thor, John Michael Thor, and I'd reached out. I'd known Thor, and I don't even remember how, probably over the years somehow.
Right.
And so when I was doing the movie, I shot John a message and said, hey, you know, I'm going to put a lot of music in this film. Would you be willing or able to put something in? And he's like, yeah, sure, I'll send you something. And he goes, you know, I got a couple of guys that play with me too that have side projects. Would you be willing to listen to their stuff? I'm like, heck yeah.
Sure.
So Kevin was one of them, and you know, he sent me his stuff. It was great. I used it in the film, and we just became friends. And I mean, it's almost like, you know, twin brothers from different mothers.
Wow.
I mean, when I was doing the previous record, we ended up firing our lead guitar player in the middle of the studio sessions. And it was just one of those things. Great guy. We're still friends. He's helped us get gigs. Just, he kind of froze when we were in the studio. He just froze and couldn't play at all. And he was a good player.
Wow.
It just didn't work in the studio. And so I'd had a couple of people guest on that one, but I think I still had, including Kevin, he had done a guest spot for me. I called him back or messaged him back, and I'm like, would you be willing to do a few more songs? You know, I said, you know, I've kind of run into this problem. I'm, you know, running out of time in the studio. I've run into this problem. You know, I thought I had a lead player that was going to play the rest of the album, and, you know, he's not going to be able to do it. You know, I was going to try to get the people that had done one, seeing if they could get an extra one or two. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, sure, man, I'll do a couple for you. What you need? I'm like, 7. But the thing is, he did them, and he killed them, and they were amazing. And
oh my God,
it was just like, you know, if I could have told somebody exactly what to play, this would have been it. And so this time...
That doesn't happen often.
Yeah, he helped produce that album. And then this time, he's like, you know, I'll produce this one for you too, if you'll just let me do it. And I tell you, that was asking a lot, because when it comes to my creative stuff, I'll admit I am a control freak. I'm very picky. I am a control freak. So Kevin and I butted heads a few times. I kept saying 5th best producer in Canada. And in my eyes, I take that back. In my eyes, 1st best producer in Canada. You know, I kept saying, you know, that, and I'm like, you know, Kiss wasn't crazy about Bob Ezrin on Destroyer either.
Right.
Until he gave them a, you know, multi-platinum album.
Exactly.
Then they went back and went, yeah, I think Bob knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
So I was kind of the same way. I'm like, Kevin's doing this. He's doing an amazing job. He's doing it, you know, as much as anything out of the goodness of his heart, because he enjoys and believes in the music.
Right.
And believes in me. And to me, that is like the ultimate compliment. building fans is one thing, and it's really, really, really hard to build fans. Being respected by your peers. And I honestly, I don't consider people like Cherie and Jimmy and Kevin and Thor. I don't consider those people my peers. I consider myself quite a bit below them. To me, I am not on their peer level. But people that do the same thing, people that I do respect their talent and their abilities, the fact that Kevin's willing to use tons of his time and hook me up with other people that have worked with huge name people, and they're doing it as a favor to Kevin because they like him so much, and I'm getting some of that rub.
That's amazing.
Like it is. It really is, because I couldn't have produced anywhere near what I have without those guys.
Without them, yeah.
And Al Harlow, that was in Prism, he did the lead guitar on the same song that Cherie's singing on. So that song is star-studded. Take me out of it, and it's star-studded.
It's fantastic.
And it just sounds amazing. And now Al and I have become friends. Again, someone I grew up listening to. I won't disclose too much because I don't know what Al would want disclosed, but
sure.
He even mentioned to me that he would like to cover one of my songs.
Oh, cool.
And I was like, there's no bigger compliment.
Yeah.
There is no bigger compliment. It just blew me away. I was just amazed at someone like that. I'm like, okay.
Humbling experience.
When I've traveled 4.5 hours and I'm playing to 7 people, it helps to remember that Cherie Curry was willing to sing a song with you.
That's right.
Jimmy Stiff was willing to play lead guitar for you.
Absolutely.
Kevin Stewart Swain was willing to produce for you. Yep. Al freaking Harlow wants to record one of your songs. So that's kind of what keeps it going, because it is so easy to get discouraged.
Oh my God.
Because you send your material out there. What we play is so different.
Right.
I mean, in this area especially, 2 things are all that gets booked here for the most part, unless unless you're a national act. All that gets booked around here is country or death metal.
Yeah, extreme.
We are about as far in the middle of both of those as you can get.
Yeah.
So it's really hard for us to get gigs. I mean, a lot of the times when we do get open for bigger bands, we're opening for the really heavy metal guys, because that's all we have.
Wow.
Now, we do have an upcoming gig where we're opening for a Doors tribute band.
Oh, cool.
So that'll be a good fit.
Yeah.
It's a little weird to me, an original band opening for a tribute band, but the tribute bands are very successful right now. They're very high demand. It's not like I'm going to get to open for the Doors. So this is the next best thing.
Sure. Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. When's that coming up?
That is July 12th.
That'll be here before you know it.
Yeah, that one's coming up. So hopefully that one's going to be. If you're in the Gastonia, North Carolina area, we will be playing at the Rooster on July 12th, opening for Crystal Ship, I think is their name, which is a Doors tribute band. Even though I don't know exactly what their name is, it's Crystal something. I wasn't prepared to give this plug, so but I think it's Crystal Ship. But regardless, I've heard them; they are fantastic. I mean, you'll think you're hearing the Doors, so I'm looking forward to hearing them. Come on out, come see us. Come early enough, because we're gonna tear the stage up and they'll put it back together for them. That'll be a great show. So I'd love to have people out for that one. So Gastonia, North Carolina, July 12th. I think the show starts at 7.
Be there or be square. My God, you've had such a journey. Wow. Seriously, between singing and the band and touring and writing and movies and acting. Do you like all of it on an equal level, or are you gearing towards one area over the other?
Music is my first love. I love music. If I could do nothing but music and make a living, that's what I would do. Problem is that of the things I do, music pays the least and takes the most. It's more time, more dedication, more traveling for less money. Books, I actually make money on. I don't get rich. I'm not Stephen King. Now, that don't... Hey, Black Bed Sheet Books, Chuck W. Chapman, author. Amazon, Chuck W. Chapman, author. So you can get the Audible. If you don't want to read, I don't care. You can listen. You're listening to a podcast that shows me you like to listen. You got it? So,
that's right.
Yeah.
That's
so
right.
Just hit up Audible, Chuck W. Chapman. So yeah, but I do make money on the books. I do a lot of conventions, horror conventions, comic conventions, and stuff pretty much regionally, although I did do Salem, Massachusetts last year, and I'll probably do it again next year. I wanted to do it this year, but there's so many other things with LA and stuff that those kind of trips I have to kind of stagger. So that, and again, how I met Cherie was through one of those conventions, and I've made some great friends. In fact, that's how I met Butch Patrick, who was Eddie Munster, and he was in my film. He was in He Drives at Night. And sort of the same way as Cherie, met him at a convention, just got talking to him like, hey, this is a cool guy. We traded information when I had a chance, when I was doing a film. And I'm like, it'd be nice to have, someone with a little bit of a name in this.
Sure.
Well, I know Butch Patrick. Let me give Butch a call and see if he's interested,
Done.
So those things. And again, he's kind of one thing complimenting or helping the other. Yeah. If I hadn't been there promoting books, I wouldn't have been there, wouldn't have been thinking about doing the movie or whatever. So,
oh my God. What advice would you give a new indie artist?
Get a haircut and get a robe job? No, just do it for you. Do it for your own self-enjoyment, for your own fulfillment. Do it because you love it. If you do it to try to please anyone else, or if you do it to try to just to make money or to get girls, or it does work, by the way, but not why you should do it. You can scratch that part. My wife might listen to this. Nah, that was the original. That was the start. You said new artist.
You're right.
Yeah. But yeah, if you're doing it for any other reason than the fact that you just love what you're doing, you love the music, and you love making an ass of yourself in front of people, that's the only reasons to do it. Could you slip on a banana peel and make a living doing it? Sure. But like I said, all these people that I've worked with, and I have friends that are professional musicians. Literally that is how they're making their living, and they are working so hard.
Yeah.
And nobody knows who they are. It's not like people are stopping them on the streets for autographs or anything. And these guys are playing in 3 or 4 bands. They're gone 25 days a month. They're making a living, but they are not getting rich by any means. So, and I don't know what the future of the music business, I don't even know if there is a future of the music business.
I agree on that one. It really has become so hard these days to get started, to stay in, and then have any longevity in the business at all. And I think too, AI has something to do with that as well. I think a true indie artist, as you were saying, for me, indie artists are some of the hardest working people with very little monetary outcome from it, and yet you put more than 100% into what you love. So yeah, it is, like I said earlier, it is not for the faint of heart. So where can everybody find you for singing and for acting and for your books and every place else?
Pretty much everything is Chuck W. Chapman. You can even Google Chuck W. Chapman and it'll give you a list of all my stuff. Make sure you put that W in there. That W is really important.
Yeah.
If you don't put the W in there, there's other Chuck Chapmans. I will be one of the 27 that pop up. If you put Chuck W. Chapman, it's going to be all me all the time, baby.
Right.
But no, chuckwchapman.com, my website, of course, for everything. Facebook, either Chuck W. Chapman, that's going to get my personal page. Unless you want to see pictures of my cat and stuff, then you probably want to go to Chuck W. Chapman Entertainer. That is the band professional page. But I share a lot of the same stuff on both because a lot of people just jump on my personal, even though I'm say, hey, go to the professional page. But it doesn't, I don't care. I really don't care. If you want to connect with me. If you message me, I will message back, do answer messages. Don't spam me. People spam me. If you spam me, I'm going to if you spam me or try to do something, you're deleted and blocked immediately. But if you're just like, if you're a fan, if you say, hey, I like your music, that's awesome. I'm going to respond. If you're a player or, I've got like a guy that was like 15, 16 that contacted me through there, hey, I love your music, whatever. Become friends with him. Never met the kid. It was really, really cool. It was great, both wonderful and sad at the same time. I saw where he had listed his 3 favorite guitar players and I was one of them. I'm extremely flattered. However, he's probably better than I am. I was like, kid, I've heard you're playing, you're better than me. But it really, it's nice to know that that you can have a little bit of impact on somebody and, give some encouragement. And that's what I'm going to do. I won't tell anybody don't get in the business, but I will be realistic enough to tell people, okay, here's what you expect if you do. Yeah. At one time, my daughter had thought about doing it, and she is immensely, ridiculously talented. She writes, she sings, she plays piano, and there was a time that she wanted to get it. And I'm like, honey, get a college degree. And then if you still want to do it, I will 100% support you. But I have been chasing this tail around in circles for 35 years. And I don't want you to have to do that and know that you can't get any further, because it's really a crapshoot. And even more so now than ever. It was always, kind of who you knew and who,
Right. Who knew who?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's even more so now. And it's just, no A&R people don't go out to clubs looking to discover bands anymore.
No. No,
in general, they're not like looking through YouTube or whatever. Occasionally,
no.
somebody pops up and's got 10 million views or something. Yeah, that's
And
going to draw
maybe,
attention. But
yeah, it's a tough industry.
it is. It's
It
just
really is tough.
really hard now. So
So, kudos to you that you're still here and still entertaining, and everybody gets to go see Chuck W. Chapman.
I just haven't slowed down enough to die.
Don't break a hip.
Or break hips. Yeah. Like, Tom Petty, if you never slow down, you never grow old.
That's
Tom
it.
got slow and look what happened. So
That's it. Don't slow down.
yeah, don't slow down. Don't slow
No.
down. But yeah, pretty much everything's Chuck W. Chapman.
Okay.
X, YouTube, Chuck W. Chapman music.
Yes, go find Chuck, like him, comment, buy his music, buy his books, watch
Definitely.
the movies.
Buy stuff. Yeah, you can watch the movie for free. The movie is even free on YouTube and on Tubi.
There you go.
So you can watch the movie. He drives at night. For every stream, I get 0.00063 cents. So if you watch that movie 630 times, that's a penny in my pocket. And I appreciate that.
We're laughing, but that's just insane. It's just really, that's what it's come down to. And
I'm on Spotify, I'm on iTunes, Apple Music. These are all, any streaming service you're going to find me. You may have to look twice because as of right now, I'd used a different distributor for the last two albums, and they have me as two different people. So one of them is Chuck W. Chapman with a period, one is Chuck W. Chapman without a period. Like, I don't really care about them. Just put them together, please.
Yeah.
They're not doing that yet. But
okay. All right. Yeah, we'll look for you on both sides.
For every Spotify stream, I get 0.0003 cents. So you only have to listen to each song 30 times for me to get a penny on Spotify. So just put it on repeat. And, you put it on repeat, and 3 years from now, you're going to be like my top fan and stuff. And I'm going to be your top fan because you're going to have made me $30. I'm
going to send you a t-shirt. God, Chuck, you are too much. You're funny. I have enjoyed this conversation in case you couldn't tell.
Practicing my next career. I'm going into stand-up next.
There you go.
I get too old to tour, I'm going into stand-up. Or roll up. I'll just let them roll me up in a wheelchair or like one of those.
That's right. Where's Chuck? He's on Comedy Central. Go check him out on that.
One of those Hannibal Lecter hand truck things. Just let them wheel me out there and stand me up.
There you go. Prop you. Chuck, thank you so much for being my guest on the R2RB podcast series. I appreciate you.
Oh, you're awesome. You've been fun. A good host makes the difference. If you had no personality, if you weren't throwing cool stuff at me, I couldn't run with it. So you handed me the ball, I just ran.
Oh, I appreciate that. Oh my goodness.